Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 22 of 24 from Las Vegas in the USA. The final American race of the season and the first of the triple header finale sees us head to the glamorous lights of Las Vegas, where our simulated championship is close to boiling point on both the drivers and the constructors' fronts. Will we see yet another twist in the tale today? Here's how the drivers' standings shape up after last time out at Sao Paulo. The gap between Verstappen and Norris at the top is now just 3 points, with the duo, kinda like in the real championship, looking like our main protagonists for this simulated crown. Sainz jumps up to P3 after a very good showing in Brazil, with his teammate Leclerc falling down to P5, level on points with Tsunoda, who remains P4. Hamilton and Alonso remain separated by a single point in 6th and 7th respectively, both drivers pulling further away from Russell in P8. Gasly and Piastri continue to round out the top 10. The constructors' standing sees another leader switch, with Ferrari reclaiming the top spot. However, Red Bull now moved down to 3rd behind McLaren, who are on a late season push for the constructors' crown. Mercedes remain outsiders for the title in P4, pulling away from RB in 5th and Aston Martin in 6th. Sauber remain in 7th, Alpine closed the gap to Williams in front of them, and Haas still remain last. Compared to the actual standings, the Drivers' Championship seems all but certain for Verstappen thanks to a wet weather masterclass in Brazil, with the gap between himself and Norris now up to 62 points, with only a maximum of 86 points available in total. Leclerc remains ready to pounce for the P2 spot behind Norris, pulling away from Piastri in P4, who looks set to have a duel with Sainz for 4th in the championship. Russell moves ahead of his teammate Hamilton in P6 and P7 respectively, while Perez, Alonso and Hülkenberg hold station in 8th, 9th and 10th respectively. As for the constructors, McLaren's lead to Ferrari increases to 36 points, with Red Bull moving closer to the Scarlet team in P3. Mercedes remain lonely in 4th along with Aston Martin in 5th. Alpine make a huge leap up thanks to a double podium finish in Brazil, jumping from P9 to P6. Haas, RB and Williams shuffle down as a result, and Sauber still remain pointless in P10. Now, it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Las Vegas GP. Sainz became the first repeat driver selected, so he is now permanently removed from the wheel for the rest of this season. Without further ado, let's spin the wheel and find out who will be racing as around the streets of Las Vegas. And the wheel stops on George Russell in the Mercedes. Funnily enough, we last raced as Russell at the last American race we did back at COTA. Can we make up for the strategy blunder from last time and give Russell a win in the States? It's time for the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
The walls are close, the speeds are high, and the location is borderline unbelievable. It is time for qualifying in Las Vegas.
So here we are then in the Mercedes garage as George Russell once again. In the States, we did race as him last time out in COTA, and we lost a near on certain win thanks to a, strategy blunder from ourselves. But nonetheless, we are in qualifying. We just finished up Q1 and we only end up in P10 in Q1. Still need to get in the groove on this track. It's a track I'm not familiar with considering it only got added last year. But nonetheless, we've lost from Q1 Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg, Logan Sargent in the Williams, Zhou Guanyu in the Kick Sauber, and last on the grid is Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. And something to note is the fact that Norris and Ricciardo actually both have the same time, a 1:32.854, but Norris only just making it into Q2, thanks to him doing the lap first. So Norris a very lucky boy there not to be eliminated from Q1. Nonetheless, he is out to Q2 now, and also I do apologise for the audio and the stutters. The game updated recently, and there's a lot of stuttering issues with the new update, which is unfortunate to say the least, but not kind of unexpected considering how previous updates for the previous games have gone. But there we go. We just finished up Q2, we actually ended up in P1 for Q2. And we've lost from Q2, Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton, our teammate, is out in Q2, Yuki Tsunoda, Alexander Albon and Lance Stroll are also out in Q2 as well, with Perez and Hamilton also setting the same time, funnily enough. So we've had two qualifying sessions where two drivers have ended up setting the same time, but for Perez and Hamilton it didn't really matter too much for them because they both got eliminated anyway, but Perez did set the lap time first, hence the reason why he's ahead of Hamilton on the grid. As for Q3 now, we're heading for our lap in Q3. We definitely got to grips with the track at this point. We're down in P10 doing our one and only flying lap for the session. As you can see, one of our championship contenders, Norris, is currently in P6, but I believe he is on another lap, so we'll see whether he improves. We've got Bottas in P7 actually in Sauber, which is a very good result there for the Sauber driver. As we move through past the Las Vegas Sphere, heading into Sector 2, we can see that Norris has actually moved up the order, so he has indeed set a better lap time, which means we're the only one now who I believe are on a flying lap, so we could disrupt whatever is happening up front. I don't know who's on pole currently. I would assume it's Max Verstappen because it usually is. But nonetheless, we head on to the Vegas Strip now, where it's pretty much a blast all the way down, near on the entire length of the strip, I think. But yeah, full flat out all the way down to the end. We've got Magnussen in P6, Leclerc down in P7. Remember, Leclerc's now down in P5 in the standings, with his teammate now jumping up to P3. As we now head to the harsh braking zone at the end of this section of the track, heading towards the final part of the track, which is pretty much full throttle to the line. We're looking pretty good at the moment for a good spot. Will it be good enough for pole? Let's find out. The lap has been very smooth so far as we head around this left kink towards the line. Now,
yes, excellent lap. We're all very, very pleased.
and we do indeed set pole position in the Mercedes. So we definitely gained some more confidence as the session went on. So George Russell's on pole, Max Verstappen is indeed in P2, he was on pole before. Sainz in P3, a good result for him, and Lando Norris in P4, he needs to do some work to get ahead of Max Verstappen in the race. Gasly in 5th for Alpine, a good result for him. Piastri in 6th for McLaren, Magnussen in 7th for Haas, Charles Leclerc in 8th, a bit of a disappointing qualifying for him. Bottas in 9th, and Fernando Alonso rounds up the top 10. And there we go, qualifying is done, the grid is set. And now it's time for a night race under the lights of Vegas as we start the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
From the glitz and the glamour of the famous strip, it is time for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. 3.8 miles and 3 straights. A good place to do some sightseeing at around 210 miles per hour. 17 corners should provide plenty of interest and lots of overtaking with 2 DRS zones. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Norris, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, Leclerc, Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Perez, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Albon, Stroll, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Sargent, Joe, and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me is Anthony Davidson. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
Once again, they're talking about pre-race rituals. They never stop talking about pre-race rituals. But nonetheless, we're on the grid here. Pole position, George Russell. Looking at a strategy, I see no problems with the tyre strategy. One stop from medium to hards. Seems very standard. I decided to bump down my fuel because that was a lot of fuel for a 50-lap race. But nonetheless, here we go for the formation lap. And I would assume everyone has done the same tyre strategy as us. They have indeed. Everyone's starting on mediums. But then again, some of them could be doing 2 stops. All we know, but everyone is starting on the same tyre, brand new mediums for everybody, so not much difference for the start there. It's basically going to be down to how well can we perform off the line and how well everyone else can perform off the line. No one's going to have a tyre advantage, so there's no one going to be like
almost ready to take
lightning
the
off the
race.
line pretty
Cars
much,
can
unless
get
they get an
positions on the
amazing
grid,
start.
with the drivers and teams
But
making
here we
their
go,
final
heading
preparations.
towards the grid now. At the end of the formation lap, we got Max Verstappen right behind us in P2 and Carlos Sainz in P3. We got Lando Norris in P4 as well. He's going to need a good start to hopefully get ahead of Max. But if it's anything like real life, he probably won't get a good start. But hey, video games can do some funny things, as we see now Magnussen pulling up there in P7. A good result for him in the Haas. Hopefully he can get some points of Haas, and hopefully they can move towards, I believe it's Alpine in 9th currently, and Williams in 8th. So hopefully Haas can join that fight and not be stuck in last for forever. As we move now to 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. Seems like an even start for everybody. Sainz actually getting a good start, actually side by side with Max Verstappen going into turn 1. But we make an excellent start to retain the lead. Sainz trying to go around the outside of Verstappen into turn 1. Into turn 2 he has the inside line and just pulls ahead. But Verstappen still side by side. And as you can see behind him, Norris is actually under pressure from Pierre Gasly, who started in P5. And Piastri, his teammate, is also looking to make a move as well. Trying to slipstream behind the Alpine. Thinks better of it and stays behind. As we see Sainz try to go down the inside of Max into turn 3, but Max holds around the outside. Gasly just ahead of Norris there in P4, but Norris has the inside line going into this technical section here. And I believe just stays ahead of Gasly. Gasly trying to stay there on the outside going into the next corner, but Norris remains in P4, which is good for him. But he has lost ground to the 2 cars in front of him. Verstappen holding on to P2. Ahead of Sainz, but for us it's actually quite good for them squabbling, as it allows us to get nearly a second ahead of Verstappen in P2. We need to be a second ahead before the DRS activates on lap 2. Hopefully we can do, and it looks like we're just getting there. Yes, we're just over a second now. If we can hold that second lead going into the second lap, that'd be good, as we see Sainz now pulling alongside Max Verstappen once again going down the strip. Down the DRS zone, which hasn't been activated yet. We're heading towards the braking spot now. Verstappen has the inside, so should just keep Sainz at bay. As you can see, Norris is actually side by side with Gasly again, but just holds off him as well. So very much everything remaining stationary in the top 10 there on. Hamilton has actually moved up to P10 and P11. Alonso's had a bad start going down to P12. But nonetheless, we have moved ahead, second ahead of Verstappen, which has allowed us to get away. And we move to lap 4 now. We see Sainz now blasting by with a DRS. Past Max Verstappen, and Norris has actually caught up to the pair of them. It's actually kind of a DRS trade. Everyone's kind of caught up to these cars at this point. And we see Norris now pull alongside Verstappen, and Norris actually overtakes Verstappen for P3. Verstappen losing 2 spots there in the space of like a couple of corners. But as you can see, this DRS zone is actually very, very powerful, as we see Norris now overtake Sainz for P2. So now we've got 2 places between Norris and Verstappen now. But this DRS zone is very powerful, so you're going to see quite a few overtakes between this leading lot of cars here in this DRS train, thanks to the DRS zone down the strip. And here comes proof of that, as we see now Max Verstappen overtake Sainz now for P3. That's actually on the last part of the lap there. But nonetheless, Verstappen now to P3, Sainz now down to P4, who was P2 originally. And on the same lap, lap 6, we see now Verstappen blast by Norris for P2. So yeah, you're going to see quite a bit of this. This happens pretty much all race. So, yes. There's going to be a lot of shuffling between 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Maybe even 5th there with Gasly and 6th with Piastri. As we see now Sainz go alongside Lando Norris and take P3 away from him. Moving on to lap 7. So yeah, it's a lot of shuffling between these cars. You can see a lot of shuffling between the cars down there, thanks to the straights and the DRS zones. As we now look at Piastri, who's under pressure from Bottas in the kick Sauber. Piastri going down the inside to defend. Bottas trying to hang it around the outside. Doesn't do much, but he does have a good slipstream coming down the last straight here to the line. And actually he overtakes Piastri, and Leclerc looking to overtake Piastri as well, going into the lap 11. So they both had to turn 1, they both are side by side, and even Hamilton looking to try and go down the inside of Piastri. Piastri losing a lot of spots here, thanks to the DRS zone and the slipstream. Leclerc actually got past him there pretty easily. And Hamilton trying to hang around the outside, thinks better of it. Piastri at least holds on to 9th, but he's lost 2 spots there in the space of a couple of corners, really. He's lost spots to Leclerc and Bottas. Hamilton trying to go around the outside of Piastri now, down the end of the first DRS zone. And they're still side by side going through this technical section where the Sear is. Hamilton's still trying to keep on the inside. I'm not sure you could go side by side through here, but they're going to try. And Piastri having to go on the curb there. And Hamilton with the inside line actually does take the position away from Piastri. So Piastri losing 3 spots there. You go down from 7th to 10th. And now Hamilton and Piastri have lost ground to Bottas and Leclerc in front of them. As we see now this huge battle here between Verstappen, Norris, Gasly, Sainz and Magnussen going into turn 1. Magnussen down the inside of Sainz. Sainz losing more positions now. Thanks to the DRS and the slipstream working very effectively. Magnussen just being held off there by Sainz. But Magnussen and Gasly joining the party, and Gasly now trying to hound the top 2 cars there, as we see Norris making a move on Verstappen for P2 down the DRS straight. Magnussen side by side with Sainz going through that corner, going down to the sphere now. Magnussen's still there on the inside through the sphere section. He might actually take the position here from Sainz so we could just maintain side by side through this corner, and he is on the inside, and sure enough, he does try to take the spot, and he does. Magnussen out to P5. Very good stuff there for the Haas driver, and Sainz losing ground. And seeing that he's losing ground, he actually decides to come in early. I think he's doing the 2-stopper here, is Sainz, as he pulls into his pit box. And sure enough, he is doing a 2-stopper. Since he's put on another set of mediums, he will need to come in again to put on a different compound later on. So Sainz absolutely confirmed for a 2-stopper, along with Nico Hulkenberg, I believe, who has already pitted. So he's down in P20 there. As for us, though, we're actually quite comfortably ahead of everyone who's squabbling with each other. We're actually 11 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen here, as we come in on lap 21 of 50 for our one and only pit stop of the day. We're going to move on to hard tyres here. Mechanics putting on hard tyres, 2.4, decent stop there. And as you can see, Verstappen and Norris have gone past us, so Verstappen now leading the race, Norris just right behind him. Gasly coming in as well, same with Magnussen as well, so we should hold on to P3, and we do. Alonso will be in P4 since he has not pitted yet, but we maintain P3. We've got some clear road in front of us, and with Verstappen and Norris squabbling with each other, I can assume we're going to catch up to them pretty soon if they don't pit, but they do pit on the next lap. Both of them pitting in at the same time, so it's a pit stop race between the 2 mechanics. Who will be the faster pit crew today? As we see Norris's pit crew put on the hard tyres, and Max Verstappen jumps him in the pit lane. So Red Bull with the faster pit stop means that Verstappen is now ahead of Norris coming out of the pit lane, but they're still pretty much nose to tail. So with the DRS zones, it could be a matter of time before Norris reclaims that position. But both of them just get ahead of Gasly, who did pit a lap earlier. So Gasly trying to do the undercut, didn't really work out too well. But nonetheless, he's still right behind them in P4. As we see Sainz now trying to make a move on Nico Hulkenberg. These two, remember, pitted in early, and they're both doing a 2-stopper for this race. Try and go through side by side at the end of the strip. Hulkenberg just holds on to the position. And as you can see now, Sainz is actually pulling to the left. It looks like he's going to make his second and final pit stop of the day, and indeed he does as he pulls into the pit lane. He should be coming onto the hard tyres for the last stint of this race, so he will have fresher tyres than the one-stoppers for the end of this race. But the question is, can he use those newer hard tyres to his advantage? As he now pulls out of the pit lane, he goes down the order. He'd probably end up in last considering the DRS train there, and that indeed he does. So he's going to need to make a bunch of moves in order to get some points today. It looks like the 2-stop is not the best plan here, but nonetheless we will see. As we see Norris now overtake Verstappen. Verstappen locking up just before the strip section. So that's a mistake from Max there, giving P2 to Norris. And now Gasly trying to get P3 from Max Verstappen here. But both of them going to have DRS, so Norris probably not a good idea for him to overtake there. Now Gasly blasting by Norris, and now Gasly's up to P2. But Max Verstappen is actually trying to get back P2 as well. But Gasly taking the inside. Gasly in the Alpine is now up to P2 in this Las Vegas Grand Prix. Gasly having a barnstorm of a race. Verstappen up to P3, and even though Verstappen made a mistake, Norris is actually the biggest loser there. He's down to P4. In this race behind Max Verstappen, as we see now Lance Stroll trying to make a move on the inside of the strip there, but it looks like he's pulling over to the side. He is smoke billowing out of the car, and we have our first retirement of the day. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, not really having a great race as per usual, especially compared to his teammate. Well, his teammate's actually P11, but he is pulling over to the side. He actually hits the wall there, surprisingly. But he pulls over to the side just before the pit lane. That might end up being a pit lane closed thing, if that was a thing in this game. It is not. That would usually end up with a pit lane being closed, but Nonetheless, Lance Stroll is our first retirement of the race, as we see now Verstappen making a move on Pierre Gasly down the first DRS straight, and he just pulls ahead of Gasly, but Gasly trying to maintain side by side there, doesn't, backs out of it. Verstappen out to P2, so now we've got the two championship contenders now separated by an Alpine. And it's going to be pretty awkward for Norris to try and get past. Takes him a few laps, but he does get past Verstappen there, actually. Gasly and Norris both get past Verstappen. And Norris trying to get past Pierre Gasly into turn 1. Thinks better of it, and Gasly still remains in P2. And with now Norris ahead of Verstappen, his championship rival, in P3. So, yeah, this fight is definitely interesting for this race. I don't know who's going to come out on top out of these three. It's going to be wild, but as we see now, Norris has the DRS going down the straight here. He moves up to P2 ahead of Pierre Gasly. So now Norris is the head of this train, but as we've seen before, anything can change with this train. As we now look at Logan Sargent all the way at the back of the grid here. Sargent not having a great time. I mean, he hasn't raced in F1 IRL for a while now, but it looks like it's going to go even worse for him. It appears he's slowing down, smoke billowing out of his car. Looks like our second retirement of the day. Logan Sargent and Williams is out of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which is a shame. It's one of his 3 home races for the season, but it's his last race on American soil in F1, and it's coming to an end early with 7 laps to go. Logan Sargent is out of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. As we move to the next lap now, we see Bottas trying to make a move on Magnussen going down the strip here. He tries to pass Magnussen going into the end of the thing, but as you can see, yellow flags are still out, so you can't overtake during the through the yellow flag section. Bottas does that anyway and does not give the position back, which means Bottas ends up with a 10-second time penalty for this race, which will bump him down way down the order if he doesn't serve it. So unfortunate there for Bottas, but he knew what he was doing.
Okay, information on Verstappen. They've got an issue with their car. They're going to be slow.
Oh, here we go. Verstappen now has an issue with his car. He's going to be slow. He's currently in P3. As you can see, Norris has actually broken away from DRS from Verstappen and Gasly. So Norris looks pretty safe for P2. But Verstappen is definitely not safe for P3 with his issue, as Gasly now tries to pull alongside and go down the strip here. With DRS, Gasly blasts by Verstappen, but with Verstappen having an engine issue, it looks very likely that Gasly is going to end up on the podium for this race. So Verstappen being down in P4, not very good for his championship chances, especially considering his championship rival is ahead of him and now in P2. So that is very interesting indeed, as we see Piastri trying to make a move on Charles Leclerc for P5 in this race, and he does so. But bear in mind, we also have DRS zones for 5 more laps after this, and Bottas is still waiting to pounce there, even though he has a 10-second time penalty for overtaking under yellow flags. So Piastri now in P5, but that could change towards the end of this race. We'll find out. Moving on to the last lap now, back to where we are in the lead, and yeah, it's been a very comfortable race for us, really. We broke free of the DRS zone right at the beginning, and we never really looked back. Over half a minute ahead of second place Norris. We come up to the line now, and it's going to be George Russell who wins the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Well done, guys. Brilliant, Brazil. Brilliant, brilliant.
And we actually set another fastest lap on the last lap there, so it's just to emphasise our dominant performance here. We make up for the wrongs from Kota. George Russell gets his win, and that's a lot of points for him and Mercedes.
The British driver will look up and see the checkered flag first. George Russell takes the checkered flag.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everyone played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
So there we go then, a dominant display from us. George Russell in the Mercedes means that he gets his victory in the States. Probably should have been 2 victories in the States if we hadn't messed up the red flag restart back at Kota. But nonetheless, he does get his victory here under the lights of Vegas. Norris in P2, definitely good for his championship hopes. And Gasly with a very surprising podium for Alpine there. Maybe not that surprising considering they both got podiums IRL in Brazil. But Gasly makes a return trip to the podium in our simulated season. Very good stuff. And the classified order after 50 laps of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, George Russell takes the victory and the fastest lap. Lando Norris in P2, Gasly in P3, Max Verstappen in P4, Oscar Piastri in P5, just holding off Charles Leclerc in P6. Kevin Magnussen in P7, a good result for him and Haas for sure. Alonso in P8, Perez in P9, and Carlos Sainz ends up P10 after doing the two-stop. Didn't really work out for him. He was fighting for the second place before, but he ends up P10. As for the rest of the classified finishes, we've got Lewis Hamilton just outside the points in P11, Yuki Tsunoda in 12th, Albon in 13th, Hulkenberg in 14th, Ocon P15. Bottas moves all the way down to 16th after his 10-second penalty for overtaking on the yellows. Zhou Guanyu is in P17, and Daniel Ricciardo is the last of the classified finishes in P18. And we have two retirements today, which were Logan Sargent and Lance Stroll. And there we go, that is the Las Vegas Grand Prix done. Next race, the penultimate race of the season, will be on the 29th of November. It's the Qatar Grand Prix, it's the last sprint weekend of the year. And yes, definitely after this race, the championship, both championships, are still very much on the line. Both of them very exciting, very, very close. I don't even know who will end up on top on either of them. But you definitely want to tune in for that one. After watching this one as well, this one was pretty exciting as well. You definitely want to tune for the Qatar one to see what happens with the championships. And who knows what could happen in them. Could Red Bull end up in the Constructors' lead once again? Could Norris actually end up taking the Drivers' Championship potentially in Qatar? Who knows at this point? There are more points to offer over there, so who knows what could happen. Either way, someone could win the Drivers' Championship in Qatar. Because it's the penultimate race, so make sure to tune in for that one, 29th of November. As for the standings after the Las Vegas Grand Prix, we see a new leader at the top of the driver's standings. Lando Norris takes the lead away from Max Verstappen. The two separated still by 3 points, but them two shuffling order. Lando Norris, first time he's taken the championship lead, I think, in any of these simulated seasons, so there we go. McLaren driver in pole position currently for this Drivers' Championship, but anything can change. And also, Norris and Verstappen are now officially the only two drivers that can win the championship, since now Carlos Sainz in P3 is out of championship contention. He is currently 65 points behind Lando Norris in P1, with a maximum of 60 points available from the last two races. So Sainz is now out of championship contention. It's only Norris and Verstappen now who can win the Drivers' Championship. Sainz now in P3, Leclerc jumps back up to P4, 4 points behind his teammate. Yuki Tsunoda slips down to 5th, and Fernando Alonso is actually only 4 points behind Yuki Tsunoda, who was our championship leader early on in the season, but has faltered in the last part of the season. Alonso, last year's championship winner, is in our simulated season. Obviously can't regain his championship now. He is in 6th. Hamilton remains in P7, excuse me. The gap between them extending only a little bit because Alonso only got P8. Actually, I just realized Alonso actually jumps at Hamilton, so Alonso goes up to P6, Hamilton P7, George Russell remains in P8 despite winning the Las Vegas Grand Prix. He's 30 points behind his teammate, looking set to remain in 8th place for the season. Pierre Gasly remains in 9th despite getting a podium here in Las Vegas, but he does move a few points ahead of Oscar Piastri, who remains in P10. As for the constructors, Ferrari and McLaren are now only separated by 7 points going into the last two races. Ferrari still in the lead with 378, McLaren in second with 371, and Red Bull not too far behind them either with 356 points. Mercedes still remain in championship contention and do move closer to the top three with a good result for Russell at least, but they are outsiders for this Constructors' Championship with 314 points. RB now mathematically out of championship contention in P5 with 252 points. They're only 12 points ahead of Aston Martin now, who remain in 6th. Pick Sauber remain in 7th despite not getting any points, but Alpine with their good result jump Williams. Move up to 8th in the standings. They're only 11 points behind Sauber, so that fight for 7th is going to be very interesting to the end of this season. Williams bumped down to 9th, still only 10 points behind Alpine, and Haas still remain in last, but have broken the 100 points mark and are only 23 points behind Williams. So a few good results for them. Could see them jump Williams and go up to 9th and not be in last anymore. And there we go. That is the Las Vegas Grand Prix done and dusted. 22 rounds down, only 2 rounds left to go. We got Qatar in 1 week's time, and then 1 week after that is the season finale in Abu Dhabi, where Norris or Verstappen can take the title in Qatar or Abu Dhabi. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, or Mercedes can take the constructors. I think it's mainly down to Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull. I don't think Mercedes will catch up unless some wild results happen in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So we got a three-way fight mainly for the constructors and the drivers. We have a two-way showdown between Norris and Verstappen. Very exciting stuff indeed. But nonetheless, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this race. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Still got 2 more of these videos to come this year, so hopefully you watch them too. If you haven't seen any of the previous rounds, make sure to watch them as well. There's a whole playlist for them on my channel. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this race, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.